I'm going to go get a stand so I don't have to hold this phone.
Go get your stand.
It's on my dresser downstairs.
I got one up here.
You got a stand for him?
Music stand?
No. It's a phone stand to hold the phone.
Oh, I got one.
You do?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't have it.
I'll be right back.
Here, I got one right here, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. I don't know what that does.
But
Oh, in landscape view, I don't know what that does.
Alan,
Yes, sir.
can you hear the music?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Mhm.
Oh my God.
How dare you?
Is it running now? Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Godfather Soul James Brown. I tell you, this business is on. My man is on. Check him out. This is the Godfather Soul James Brown saying stay with it and hit it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Innervision FM. And we're going to have a very exciting, fun show tonight. We have a special guest on tonight with us tonight. And just remember that we do have our Innervision FM radio station. We've had some low counts. So we are, let me do this. Let's see. I think I'm going to do, let's see, where is the microphone? Okay, we're gonna simulcast on Innervision FM. I just turned on the microphone so the audience can hear our conversation on the radio station innervisionfm.com. And also, I want to let you know that we do have a PayPal account, paypal.me/Innervision Denver, to help us with some of the things that we are dealing with here. Last month, we to run the station, we paid about $910. So we could definitely use monthly members. We're trying to get up to about 50 people to help us support Innervision. Like, and a 25. If we got 50 people to do $25 a month, that would more than help us with those bills. And don't forget the thumbs up, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And now I'll let Alan, because Alan, he's the one who he brought this gentleman up. I'll let Alan introduce our guest tonight and the topic.
All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, top of the time zone, wherever you may be watching or listening to InnervisionFM.com. We have a special guest, chairman for Center for Government Accountability, found at www.accountabilityrevolution.com. That's www.accountabilityrevolution.com. Tell us a little bit about what we do, Dave, and what the website is about.
Well, thank you, first of all, Alan, for inviting me on. I appreciate that. The purpose of the accountabilityrevolution.com is to teach people how to make government officials accountable. Now, that's not known, evidently. We were given that right under the Declaration of Independence, which states that if government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter and abolish. And as time went along, people forgot that. There's a tremendous amount of problems going on right now with officials in government. Unfortunately, no one is exercising their right, or very few are, to make those government officials accountable. If they did that, most of the problems we see today would go away.
That's absolutely right.
Hmm.
It's
And,
really not very difficult. Our website is there to help people, to show them how to do it. This should have been taught, of course, in schools. It should have been taught in government classes, but it isn't, and it wasn't. The fact that we have that ability to be what amounts to the secondary legal system of the United States. If you remember, the Constitution starts out, "We the people." And it got that authority from the fifth dat in the Declaration's prime statement of law, that we hold these truths self-evident, that if government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter and abolish. That's where the authority comes from. There is no authority greater than that. And the purpose of accountabilityrevolution.com is to give people a place they can go to learn how to make their government officials accountable. A good example right now, of course, is the education system.
That's absolutely right, Dave. So basically, it's not only a right, but I would even say it's our responsibility. If these things don't take place, we'll have what we have here today, where the people are now afraid of our federal government. You've got the latest current events where folks are trying to go to the school boards on a national basis, most notably in Loudoun County, Virginia, and other places, which caused our Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to go ahead and draft a letter to the Federal Bureau of Investigations to go ahead and start hitting the United States people, the American people, with the idea that we are going to be labeled as domestic terrorists. It kind of puts a chilling effect on what we, the people, would like to see taught in our schools. And the school boards, by writing this letter to the Attorney General, which then caused Merrick Garland to enact these things through the Department of Justice, it ends up that the people are actually now kind of afraid, as it were, of our federal government instead of the other way around. The federal government is designed at its inception to serve the people of the United States, because they get their power through the consent of the governed.
That's exactly right, Alan. In fact, the fourth dat in the Declaration's prime statement of law, which supersedes all other law and in fact was the basis for the Constitution of the United States, states that we hold this truth self-evident, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men with the consent of the governed. Giving you an example that you just used, the school boards here in Colorado, we have already contacted both the Colorado School Board and our local school board and explained to them that they are required under the Ordinance of 1787, which holds sway on states, civil and religious liberty, that they are required to teach religion, morality, and knowledge in the schools. And we didn't say that. The law says that.
That's absolutely right. And that was enacted by our first president, George Washington.
That's right. It's passed by Congress, and it is in what's called Section 1 of the United States Legal Code, annotated under organic law. There's only 3 laws there, and those laws are primary to the United States. One is the Declaration of Independence, the second is the Constitution, and the third is the Ordinance of 1787 regulating state constitutions. So things like governorships, they come from the Ordinance 1787. Bicameral legislatures, that comes from the Ordinance of 1787. A judiciary comes from the Ordinance of 1787 in the states. Now, we're not talking about the federal government. We're talking about the states. Every state has to agree with that in order to become a territory or a state of the United States. That's the law. Well, also in there, it says that schools will be forever promoted. That's where we got the schools in the United States. That's where it comes from. But a school is one that teaches religion, morality, and knowledge for good government and the happiness of mankind. That is a quote from the Ordinance 1787, Article 3, Sentence 1. So every school board is required by law to teach religion, morality, and knowledge. The question is, which religion, which morality, which knowledge? Well, our founding fathers said time and again in the themselves and in their founding documents, they said, in the year of our Lord, 1776. The only person that was a Lord in 1776 years before that was Christ. In addition to that, the Supreme Court has said time and again that the religion of government of the United States is the Christian religion. So that can be promoted to a citizens, to a school board. And then if they don't abide by that, citizens have the right to hold them accountable under the rules of the Declaration and the Constitution. And they can remove them from office. And there's nothing the government can do to stop them. That's the key. Once they have power and use it once more, you're going to be looking at a whole different situation. Right now, most government officials doesn't matter if it's school board or if it is the attorney general or if it is the legislatures, they feel they can do what they want because citizens have no power to stop them. And of course, we talk so many times in America about the fact that we have rights. Well, how many rights do you have if you can't enforce them?
Well, that's absolutely right. That's a very good point that you bring up, because you have absolutely zero rights if you cannot enforce those rights.
Regardless of what they say is your rights, if you cannot have those enforced and the government is required to enforce them but will not do it, then that means the citizens become the secondary legal system of the United States outside of government, and they can prosecute those individuals in government for whatever it is that they need to be prosecuted for. The purpose of the ordinance of 1787, the purpose of the Center for Government Accountability is to teach people how to do that and then give them a place they can go. They can even get the paperwork there, exactly how to write it up and everything.
That's absolutely right. So this makes us, in effect, the fourth branch of the federal government, meaning that you've got the legislative, which makes the laws. You've got the judicial, which basically enforce the laws made, which means they can't legislate from the bench. That means that the Supreme Court of the United States is not able to do anything other than to enforce those laws and interpret what the United States Constitution says. Then you've got the executive branch, which basically that's easy enough. It executes these two other branches and the legislation involved, and kind of oversees the judicial branch to make sure that things are being enforced properly and correctly. And anytime that they're not, the executive branch has within its power what is termed as executive order.
That's right.
But then you've got the fourth branch of the federal government. Let's say everything goes awry and everything needs to be set back to the way it should have been. So what you've got is the we the people portion right there. And we the people, well, this is for another show, but we the people, it's large W, we, but then small e, the, meaning large T, and then small HE, then people, large P, and then the rest of it, EOPLE, small. The way that they've got it set up now, it looks like we the people, and everything is in all capital letters. What that does is it forms the United States as a corporation instead of an entity governed by the people. It's set up as a business.
That's true.
Which is something that should never have been. That's an abomination of the way that the founding framers and forefathers of this country wanted for things to be set up.
One of the things you have to remember is that we have been taught that the only way that people can affect their government is elections. And that is absolutely not true. The Ordinance of 1787, the Constitution, and especially the Declaration gives individuals, 1, 2, 3, 5, however many, the absolute right to hold government officials accountable outside of elections and outside of the government courts. One of the problems they have today is that courts are just virtually inaccessible because A, they are so expensive, and B, most of the individuals running those courts will always side with the government. So our founding fathers realized this. They lived in a time, they were very smart. They lived in a time where everything in the world was top-down government and people were just serfs to be used by government. They wanted to create something different, so they did, but they had to back it up with power, and they had to give that power to the people. That's the reason that the Declaration of Independence states that if government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter and abolish. We're the only country that has that, but we do have it. And we can exercise that in a variety of ways. As an example, the First Amendment of the Constitution gives individuals the right to redress a grievance to the government. And part of that redress is government has to address that within 40 days or else the people can't. A second one is the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, which gives the people the right to adjudicate government officials. That is to hold a citizens common law independent grand jury, try them, convict them, and sentence them, and if they wish, carry out sentence or farm that sentence out. That is the right of people, is an example. There are other rights. There are other things there in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And remember, the 10th Amendment does not say that what is reserved, what is stated for the federal government, it goes only to the states. It doesn't say that. It says it goes to the states and the people. They wouldn't have said that if there weren't rights in there for the people that we're discussing. I know we're dealing with something that we almost, all of us are almost totally ignorant of. It wasn't taught in the schools. It isn't taught in civics classes. The government has fooled us into believing that we have no power, but that is not true. And accountabilityrevolution.com is where you go to find out what you can do as a few people to make your government officials, your school board, if you wish, or your attorneys general, or your governor, or your representatives in Congress, or individuals in government who are hired or appointed accountable. And you can do that individually. You can do it with 2 or 3 of you, and you can do it right now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to set time aside. That is necessary, and it's absolutely legal.
Now, tell me something. When did this start not being taught? Because, you hear people say all the time, half the things I learned in school, I don't remember now. Was this something that, it must have been something that just slowly started not being taught, and then of course, the dumbing down of American kids.
Oh, sure. This was used extensively in the 1800s. In the 19th century, people called it vigilantes. Well, they used the word as a swear word, a word to tear people down. But in fact, the word vigilante comes from vigilant, being vigilant. And you don't keep your freedom and liberty unless you are vigilant. And
That's
then in the
right.
20th century, people who had power, people who were journalists, formed a group to take over the country. And one of the things they had to do was convince citizens they had no power. Even though they said they did, they would set it up in such a way that those citizens couldn't exercise the power. Over time in the education system, they weaned people from the knowledge they needed to exercise that power, and they made us meek and mild. They made us afraid to do anything.
Now,
That's where you are today.
I was telling my sister, like, go vote. And she says, well, it doesn't matter. So I guess they slowly whittle at you, and they show you that they'll promise one thing, and then they'll go in there and do another thing. And then the people start thinking, well, we have no power because we voted these people in, and they keep lying to us.
And there's nothing you can do until the next election. Exactly.
Right.
And that's not true at all.
Yeah.
You have the right personally. You, Johnny, can form a citizens common law grand jury. You can go after your personal school board, and there's nothing the law can do, the government law, to stop you, because you have been given that right under the Declaration, under the Constitution. And as an example, we use there, you can write up the materials. How to write it up is on the website. A redress of grievance, which you can send to the Attorney General for your county, to your school board, and to the individuals involved, and to the government. And you can say, whereas they are doing this, this, and this, it's illegal, whereas therefore they must stop doing it, or they must resign. If they ignore that, you can then form a citizens grand jury. That's the Fifth Amendment right that you have personally, Johnny. And you can form that, and you can adjudicate those individuals. You can do the same thing to a government employee who is in some way being seditious, subversive, or even treasonous. You can do it. You have the right, and you can do it right now. You don't have to wait, and you do not have to spend thousands of dollars going through government courts and then have some judge throw it out, because he knows if it's them today, it's me tomorrow.
That's absolutely right. And you bring up a very valid point, especially with our current president wanting to give these banditos, as you call them, Johnny, the illegal immigrants, $450,000 a pop for their illegal actions by bringing themselves and or their children in here without process necessary to seek asylum and to legally try to enter this country. They just went ahead and they circumvented our laws and just kind of came over. Now, some of this could be forgiven, except that the way that the cartels have set things up, they'll go ahead and they'll pay coyotes to bring in adult age males to go ahead and be a sort of fighting force. And then they'll bring in kids because they know that our laws are set up to protect children, as they should be. But what ends up happening is then you have an underground setup where you've got sex trafficking and the underage children that are being used by these adult age males who aren't even their parents. So, yeah, I mean, you've got Joe Biden wanted to pay these people reparations for something that, man, this shouldn't even be.
Yeah, and I want to remind the audience that you're listening to an interview we're doing with David Cook, and it's the website is Accountability
Revolution.com. Just like it sounds. Accountabilityrevolution.com. That's right.
Yeah, and when
It's all
people
one word.
to go over there, and so you can get some wisdom, and you can get a group of people together, so you all are on the same page. Get this information and then apply it, because this slowly crept up on us. We were letting them get their left-wing socialists in these lower offices, and now we're seeing them have this groundswell. There's a election happening in Centennial tonight that there's an outsider who gets 60% of his money from outside sources. The person who lived in the city, Centennial, she only got 7% of her finances to run her campaign from outside, and the rest is from that city. So it's a lot
That's
of
a good
outside
example.
sources. Yeah.
If you look at the school board elections, you have those who will support the school board. They get tremendous amounts of money from the unions. The other people, they don't hardly have any money at all to run it, because school boards never were a high dollar election situation. But there is another thing about the website that I didn't mention, and I will now, and that is we will help you. Johnny, if you, as an example, or one of your listeners decides they want to take on some government official, they can contact us and we'll walk them through it. We'll show them exactly how to do it. We'll show them how to do the paperwork. If they decide to hold a citizens grand jury and convict those individuals, we know people who know people who know people who will then make that conviction stand, if you will. Let me give you an example. Say an individual is convicted, but we don't want to hurt anybody, do we? So here's what can happen. This is a theoretical one. I'm not saying it would. I'm not saying it wouldn't. Here, supposedly, someone picks that individual up, takes him 5 miles up into the woods, takes his shoes off and his pants off, and says, "There's the way out. Here's a compass." Maybe he makes it out and maybe he doesn't. He's probably someone that's never walked out of the woods before anyway. And when he gets out, that individual possibly could pick him up and say, "Now, if you do it again, it's going to be 10 miles.
It's a very good analogy. Now dump blindness on top of that.
And if it's bad enough, let's assume this could happen. He would go to sleep next to his wife. There are individuals who could pick him up, if you will, and his wife would never wake up. And he wakes up several days later in a pair of flip-flops and a pair of shorts and a t-shirt with holes in it in a little town in Venezuela. And he has no money, no identification, and no language skills. We didn't lay a hand on him, did we? We didn't hurt him in any way.
That's
Yes,
wow.
is take him out to lunch, take him out to dinner, but basically take him out of the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just explain to him, hey, it's important that this happened to you, so that you realize and understand that we, the people, are the one with the power, and you are one of our elected civil servants.
And we would be very happy to help someone talk to someone about that. And an individual that is breaking the laws that he's given. 9 times out of 10, if not 95 times out of 100 or more, once they realize we can do this, it's legal, and there's nothing they can do to stop it, they'll cave.
Yeah. And because there's a lot of people, and I just learned about this like this year, they'll with the source of like George Soros money, they'll find a Republican website, they'll shadow they'll copy that, put it on their website, and then they will get that money, get the name recognition. They'll get put in office, and then once they get in, then they'll switch back to who they really are. But they get in under the pretense of.
And that's where you come in, Johnny. You and people like you will go to that individual and say, "Here's what we can do. Here's the law that says we can do it. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, you're going to do this, this, and this. You're going to stop your illegalities or else." That changes the conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, we have a bunch of people at the
Capitol. We're not
doing
asking
that.
you to do anything. You're going to do it or else.
Yeah. So and so since and they had us, a lot of us where they wanted, because they have dumbed down. Whenever you could see, me and Alan, we talked about this last week. Whenever you could see on a train, a guy punch a lady in the face, and everybody standing around filming it with their cameras, and nobody's saying, "Wait a minute, mister, you just committed a crime." And I saw that on the Colfax bus here in Denver, and the couple, they came up with the guy, they were punching. I'm thinking, like, what is going on, guys, where you are punching women in the face and nobody's saying anything about it? They're taking out their cameras and filming it. It's a bunch of wimps.
You already have an example of that, Johnny. If you'll remember, on 9/11, 2 groups of passengers did nothing, and they flew those into the Twin Towers, didn't they? Another group, they flew it into the Pentagon, didn't they? And one group fought.
Yes.
And that plane did not go into the White House did it.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely right. That's absolutely right. That's where you got the individuals that said, "Hey, no more of this," and they took a couple of box cutters, and that's where that famous phrase "Let's roll" came from.
That's right.
And they went and stormed that cockpit and made sure that plane did not reach its destination.
And if
Ladies
you
and
want to
gentlemen,
do this, we will help you to roll.
That's absolutely right. We will help you to roll, and we will take this country back. We do need to keep the lights on, so hit us up at paypal.me/Innervision Denver, and in that way we can do that. You can also donate to the Center for Government Accountability at accountabilityrevolution, all one word.com. There is a store where we've got some merchandise and things like that, where you too can be a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Let's just say, you can get documentation for a little bit of a fee, and we'll go ahead and we'll put your name on the founding documents.
Now, Johnny, I want to challenge you.
Right.
Talk show hosts, for as long as I've listened, which is a long time, have talked about what's wrong. What do you call it when you talk about only what's wrong and never tell people what they can do about it? It's called being
bystander.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I challenge you now. If you want to talk about what is wrong, then you end that with, and here's what you can do about it.
That's absolutely right.
Yes.
Because when we realize that we have power, the public officials that also know this, the ones that we have elected, who sit there in the halls of governmental authority, the House, the Senate, those folks that make up the Congress, they knows these things. They do understand these things, but they do not want the people to realize the.
And Johnny,
Yeah.
you can do that. You can do it. And if you start telling people what they can do about it, you think about how little anybody else does that. Your business, your website, your money coming in would explode. It would explode because you're the one out there saying, and here's what you can do about it. And nobody else is.
Excellent. Hey, well, this has been a short half hour, and we got to have you back again because this education is like it's lacking in our society and in our schools. But we got to do, each one teach one kind of thing. So
Yeah, and in the next couple of weeks here, we're going to be setting this up, and with Johnny's blessing and his help, we're going to go ahead and do this as a full-time show.
Oh, definitely. All right, we're gonna close it out, and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're gonna be interviewing Aaron Richmond and his opinion. So stay tuned for that tomorrow night. And God bless. And
Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thank you very much, Johnny. I
All
appreciate it.
All right.
God bless.
God bless. All right.